My name is Lenny Mana-Hoppenworth, and I'm a co-founder and a co-coordinator with Indivisible Illinois and Indivisible IL9. It's the 9th Congressional District that we are referring to, which is Andersonville, Edgewater, and into the suburbs. We are really grateful that we can have this time together. We'll go a little past 8 if you are willing to do so. But at this time, just if you could, please, if you haven't already, put into the chat where you're from, maybe some groups that you're affiliated with. For grassroots, maybe that means that you have multiple hats on, or maybe you're with an advocacy group that's a non-for-profit. Or if you're here just as an individual, you could do that too. And maybe as an individual, I would encourage you to put perhaps the ward that you're from or the township that you're from, if you're from the suburbs, because representation matters. And Indivisible knows that it's not enough to vote. It's not enough to protest in the streets. We have to do more. And we are going to do that through organizing, and not just any organizing. We are being very mindful about what we do. We know that our community starts at home, starts in our own families and friends and neighbors, and it moves on from there. And we're also very grateful to extend our networks to other organizations who align with our same values and who want to win on progressive bills, because we know that policies absolutely matter. We understand with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what's at stake at this moment, but we need to bring it home. So Indivisible IL9 has been, since the quarantine happened in March, continuing to meet. This spring, we met 100 days in a row to check in with each other to make sure we were okay. And through those conversations, we found that policing and community public health, public safety, those are all issues that came up to the surface, especially in light of George Floyd, and tying that in with Amy Cooper, tying that in with Breonna Taylor, and the justice that did not come for Breonna recently. It's all very devastating. So we know we need to do more. And I'm really grateful to be here with you to do that work. So at this time, I want to point to the chat again. We've got an agenda. We did start a little bit late today. Folks that are listed in the chat include indivisibles from all over Chicago. Indivisible Illinois is in there too. Printers Row is in there. There's Lakeview. There's Rogers Park. We have CAARPR, Good Kids Mad City. We have Ward 26, Chicago Alliance from Albany Park. Thank you. Action Now, Black Leaders Building Together. Center for Popular Democracy. We've got the West Side represented here too. And we're excited to hear from all of you. We have 2 ordinances that Indivisible Illinois 9th District endorsed. One of them is CPAC, and the other is the Peace Book. We know that we are new into activism. I know for myself, I was not involved in any kind of grassroots organizing before 2016. And I'm here to listen, learn, and to grow, and to bring others with us. So I'm gonna thank Jazmine Salas from CAARPR for being here, Jalen Kobayashi from Good Kids Mad City for being here, and Deborah Harris from Action Now Chicago, for being here. And right now, I would love to pass the mic to Jazmine for you to introduce yourself and to tell us exactly what your work is all about and what brings you here today.
Well, thank you so much, Indivisible Illinois, for inviting me. My name is Jazmine Salas. I am one of the co-chairs of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. Super excited to be here tonight to talk to you all about CPAC. The Alliance does a lot of work outside of CPAC, but CPAC is our largest campaign. And CPAC would create a council that would be elected by the community to essentially give the people control over the Chicago police. We know in this city, Chicago, there is a huge issue with the police. And this has been happening historically for decades. This is something that is truly just embedded in our history and in the fabric of the city. You know, we have a police force that is operating with complete impunity. You know, they know that they have the authority to go into any community that they're currently occupying and commit crimes against Black and Latinx people. And so for us, we view the issue is that the community doesn't have control over police. And, you know, there are other, you know, people have other ideas about like, how do we deal with policing? You know, a lot of folks talk about community policing, folks talk about community oversight, but that is very different from community control. So the demand for community control goes back to the Black Panther Party. Actually, Fred Hampton was organizing for community control before he was murdered by the Chicago police. And so this is a very long demand. It's been around for decades. And CPAC is, you know, just continuing that demand, you know, with the goal of eventually, you know, getting CPAC passed and ending police impunity in the city. But what do I mean when I say control? When I say control, I mean total control. So the elected CPAC board would have the authority to hire and fire police officers. It would have the authority to appoint the police superintendent. It would have the ability to control the Chicago police budget. You know, so as we're having these conversations about budget, about the fact that, you know, 40% of the city's operating budget goes towards policing, while schools are closing, while mental health clinics are closing. You know, if we pass CPAC, we can end that practice. You know, and there are just so many things that CPAC would do. But, you know, going back to community policing and community oversight, you know, those are things that have been proposed, you know, for a while, right? And, you know, some cities have taken them on and it doesn't work because it doesn't actually address what's wrong with policing. The police are an occupying force in Black and Latinx communities, you know, especially when we talk about community policing. You know, that's this idea that like, you know, police need to work with residents to solve crime, but it doesn't actually address the power dynamic between the people who live in the communities and the police. You can be the nicest police officer ever, but if you're in that system that is encouraging you and like giving you the power to do bad things, you're gonna do bad things. That's just the way the police were created. That is their goal. Their goal is to oppress Black and brown people. And so that's why we think control is so fundamental, right? Because it is our democratic right to determine who polices our communities and how there are police. These are our communities. We live there. I mean, if you want to talk about, you know, finances, we pay their salaries, right? And so it's this idea that like, we live in the community, we know what's going on, so we should be the ones having control over the police when they come into our spaces and they try to keep us safe. So CPAC currently, we have 19 aldermen who support CPAC. CPAC, by the way, is a bill in the city council. I forgot to mention that. But we have 19 sponsors currently. We need 26 to pass. And you know, right now we're in this really exciting time because we're having folks, you know, in wards all across the city come to us and say, we want to organize for CPAC. I just got word from a comrade of mine, Frank Chapman in the Alliance, that people in Bridgeport are talking about organizing, you know, something for CPAC. Bridgeport, that was historically, you know, this white, racist, pro-cop community. And I think that's just a sign of the moment that we're in currently. You know, we're in the middle of this uprising, right? We have folks pouring into the streets, you know, demanding an end to police violence, demanding an end to their reign of terror, right? And so, you know, our solution is clear. Our solution is CPAC. And so, you know, right now we're having folks come up on the north side, you know, in Uptown, Rogers Park, definitely, Albany Park as well. That's where I live. But we're also having communities on the south side and the west side as well. Historically, the CPAC campaign started in 2011, and it started on the south side. It started in South Shore. It started in, you know, communities like Woodlawn, you know. And in total, we have 60,000 supporters citywide. There is a CPAC supporter in every single ward in the city. And we want to keep that going. You know, we are serious about putting an end to police impunity, and we want it to end today. And if you agree with that, if you want to put an end to police terror, you know, we were talking about, you know, some of the folks who have been killed by the police earlier, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. How many George Floyds have occurred in this city? You know, this is something that goes back decades, and this needs to end today. And so we invite everybody, you know, to check out our website, CAARPR.org. We have a full copy of the CPAC bill. We have summaries, we have videos, you know, we have a lot of resources for you to like learn about CPAC, as well as like educate other folks about CPAC as well. Because this is gonna take all of us being, you know, standing together, you know, fighting for CPAC. So thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the conversation.
Thank you, Jazmine. If anybody has any questions for Jazmine, please put them in the chat or go ahead and shout them out now. I was curious, actually, Jazmine, what you thought about the press conference from today, in fact, with the mayor, and I think that they had alluded to something about GAPA. Do you want to mention a little bit, because I know my own alderman, Harry Osterman in the 48th Ward, has said that, and we've had several conversations with him, and we phone banked into his office to ask him to speak to us, and we did have a town hall about CPAC versus GAPA. But can you just briefly talk about GAPA and maybe one or two differences between the two?
Well, I won't go into the details about GAPA. What I'll say is this, you know, community control of the police is a demand that goes back to the 60s. GAPA is a relatively new idea. You know, it's something that doesn't have a lot of grassroots support. You know, I've been in the streets a lot during these past few months. I've never seen anybody with a GAPA now sign. So I think for us, it's important, and definitely for me personally, to pay attention to what's going on in the streets, to pay attention to what people are saying and what people are truly asking for. And I will say, you know, we have 60,000 supporters. So for us, like, we've really built a base in this neighborhood. But I will say about GAPA, you know, going back to what I've said earlier about oversight versus control, I think something like GAPA is about having a seat at the table, but I think CPAC is actually owning the table and being able to, you know, decide who's going to sit with you and who's going to eat with you. And those are two very different concepts.
Thanks, Jazmine. It reminds me of how the local school councils for Chicago Public Schools is kind of set up, that you know, representation matters and hyper local representation matters. If anybody else has a question for Jazmine, please put that in the chat. And we hope that you will stick around, because I'm just looking at the chat and it's great. And exactly, I have never seen a GAPA now sign. It made me laugh when you said that. So thank you for that. We are going to continue to talk to Jazmine, because we would like to see CPAC passed after all of these many years that you've been working on it. And we are going to continue to ask our alderman, you know, why he will not support it. 48th Ward, Harry Osterman, several other ones. James Kappelman, a couple other ones. Jazmine, on the north side, right? We can.
Yeah, in terms of alders who don't support CPAC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Osterman, the alderwoman of the 39th Ward, whose name is escaping me right now. Definitely Kappelman as well. I know there was recently a few protests in Kappelman's ward just to really pressure him. And I know he's really holding out But, you know, I know that like the organizing work that's going on in his ward is incredible. Like folks are really pounding the pavement, you know, to really make sure that like folks know about CPAC and that folks are organized, right? Because it's one thing to tell somebody about something, it's another thing to pull them into this work. And so they've been doing great, having like town halls in the community, you know, trying to really like engage with folks. Um,
Yeah, we had an awesome Labor Day. In fact, Julia Klein, who's on the call from Hyde Park, came up to the 48th Ward, where the 48th Ward Neighbors for Justice and other groups had a fantastic Labor Day celebration in front of the ward. And I would encourage anybody who's just learning about CPAC right now, if this is the first time you've heard about it, find out who your alderman is and actually ask them where they stand on CPAC and have a conversation, because really this is an opportunity to find out firstly who represents you and where they stand on this issue. So thank you, Jazmine, for that.
mm-hmm. Can I just add one thing really quickly? I don't know how we're doing on time.
Please.
But Kelly B just dropped a link to our website, and that's caarpr.org/stop police crimes with a dash in between stop police crimes. Um, so we list out all of the 19 aldermen who support CPAC. And so if your alderperson is not on that list, then you especially need to call them and really like have that conversation. You know, in this moment when folks are demanding community control of the police, when people in your ward are asking for it, where are you? How come you're not with, you know, serving the people who put you into power? So I think that's important. I also want to add quickly. So even though we work a lot on CPAC, we also have a separate campaign called CFIS, which is the campaign to free the incarcerated survivors of police torture. So going back to Chicago's long history of, you know, police crimes, torture is definitely a part of that history. And there are folks still in prison who were basically sent there for crimes they didn't commit. And this is basically a campaign to pressure the governor to pardon them, right? He has the power to do that, you know, to get folks who didn't commit crimes, who don't need to be in prison, out of prison. Especially now during COVID, when, you know, it's already hard to be in prison because of the way that this system is set up, but especially during a pandemic, right? When there's no PPE, when there's no, you know, standing 6 feet away from somebody, you know, there may not even be soap, you know. So we need to make sure that we need to free everybody in prison, in my opinion, but especially the people who are there for crimes that they did not commit.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jazmine. It's essential what you're doing. I look to you and what you're doing. I look to Chicago Votes, who's actually going to be, you know, working on legislation and thank you, Natalie and Lori, for all your work in that way, so that we can get things moving, not just in Chicago or Cook County, but across Illinois, addressing what's happening in our prison systems right now. So thank you, Jazmine, for that. I'm going to bring up Jalen. Jalen, thank you for joining the call. We're really excited there's just so much to digest in this moment, but I feel strengthened by Jazmine's work and also by Jalen, young people who are stepping up to do the work and who have been doing this work for quite some time. Not just standing out on the street, but actually connecting with their neighbors in their community, talking about things that matter, and organizing in a strategic way to pressure their people who represent them in office to do the right thing. So I would like to give the mic to Jalen. Thank you, Jalen, for being here. Will you please introduce yourself and tell us what you're working on?
Hi, thank you so much. I am Jalen Kobayashi. I'm 19 years old. I'm a member of Good Kids Mad City. So I'm a liaison today. So imagine 5,000 other people behind me, because that's exactly how we coming. First, before I start off, I want to say thank you to Jazmine and thank you to CPAC for all of the work that y'all are doing. It's quite like insurmountable how much like shit y'all have gotten from like just trying to, you know, be sovereign in our communities. But yeah, you know, you guys are doing the right thing. And Jazmine, you just cleared the entire room, just spit facts for 10 minutes. And I was just like, wow, like, yes, like, but yeah, so basically, peace is what I'm gonna say. The Peace Book Ordinance, right? We are at Good Kids Mad City. We are a gun violence prevention and nonviolence organization working with interdisciplinary measures of ending hegemonic violence, right? Hegemony meaning white supremacist, meaning colonial state, meaning heteronormativity, right? So we operate from a lens of Black queer feminism. So reading Assata Shakur, reading Angela Davis, Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston, helps us to gauge, basically how we imagine the world we want to live in, right? So all of this ties into the Peace Book, because the Peace Book is basically going to be not only a physical manifestation of, the interdisciplinary work that we do in terms of, resource and community, mutual aid, handing out food, getting people rides to and from, but basically also kind of, propagates and brings forth this radical, queer Black feminism theory of abolition, which includes decarceration, which includes no punitive measures, right? So the Peace Book is the opposite of the Gang Book. As we know, the Gang Book was created in Chicago. I want to say during the 60s, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to quote that, but I'm going to say during the 60s. But a long time ago, or like formulated a long time ago, which basically tracks and identifies members of gangs, but also non-members of gangs, right? So people who are regular average Joes who are trying to get to and from and happen to have a cousin, here and there, happen to have somebody they know, right? Or the community they live in. They're in this book of, criminality, of, stereotyping, right? So we're basically putting people into cages, allegorically, right? We're doing it literally by incarcerating them, and then we're putting them in cages by limiting what they can do. So the Peace Book is an ordinance that we are trying to push forth, right, to Mayor Lord Lightfoot, but largely to not even to politics as a bipartisan electoral system, but politics as a system of community, right? And basically what it is it's the opposite of the Gang Book, which would basically incentivize, right? So it stipends $1,000 a month to gang members and to non-gang members who are in the communities where violence that is intercommunal, meaning, so not just gun violence, right? Domestic abuse, right? Substance abuse, looking at all of these different forms of violence that exist under hegemony, basically eradicating that through incentivizing, right, peace. So what does that look like? Peace is a system of, practice is a system of being. It's not just an emotion or a condition. It's absolutely every day in my life, every situation, I apply the Peace Book, right? How can I incentivize somebody to get out of a situation where they feel like they need to put a gun in their hand, right? So for instance, this could look like Rogers Park. We were just talking about Rogers Park, right? Rogers Park, Albany Park, two of the hottest neighborhoods on the north side right now, right? In terms of gun violence, right? There's wars between PBG, the Latin Kings, right? All type of wars going on, right? I personally know some people from East Side, right? Me as a Peace Book facilitator, right? That would be my job to go talk to them, right? Go talk to them, get them, hey, this is I got $1,000 opportunity. You said $1,000, a lot of people, eyes twinkle because we're not used to having that. So that's the spiel on it. I'm gonna go through the slides. I have a couple slides I want to present just to, stratify and like qualify basically what I'm saying. But I'm gonna share the screen, so y'all let me know when you can see the screen. Okay, start broadcast. Okay, boom.
Yes, we
Don't
can
mind
see
my, okay, period, because I'm the technological, no, let me stop. Okay, Peace Book Ordinance. I had to show y'all the title slide because period. Good Kids Mad City Peace Book Ordinance. So the Peace Book Ordinance is a, physical manifestation of, excuse me, sorry. The Peace Book Ordinance invests in Chicago's young people and recognizes their unique expertise in redressing two issues that have plagued Chicago for over 100 years. Violence perpetuated by police against community members and violence perpetuated between community members, right? So talking about hegemony and then talking about how hegemony makes us internalize and therefore, cause intercommunal harm, right? So looking at the hundreds of years that we're talking about, right? We're talking about 100 years since the 1960s, right? 100 years metaphorically because we've been here for 400. But in the 1960s, right, the non-aggression pact that was developed by, Huey Newton, Fred Hampton, right, in the Black Panther Party, like Jazmine was talking about earlier, right? This non-aggression pact also included, incentives for gang members, right, to basically get money to just not, harm each other, not, shoot each other, not do this and that, right? Getting money, selling drugs, those are all issues that are going to inevitably fall when we, attack hegemony with peace, but we must do that first, right? So as we know, police don't prevent violence, they react to and cause violence. And in the 2020 article published by the New York Times, murders are solved in Chicago around 20% of the time, meaning 80% of the time, people who are committing murders, right, are not seeing any type of justice in even the punitive form of justice because they're not getting caught, they're not being apprehended, and therefore no restorative measures can be taken. So the Peace Book that we're trying to put through is very imaginative and is very, boundless in that aspect of if we reach, somewhere, if we reach, right, folks who are, in the Peace Book program and they're peace facilitators, right? And then they end up regressing, right? We already have the restorative justice plan for that, because we know that this work is not immediate. It is not consequential in the idea of it's going to happen right away. It takes learning and practice, right? Me, I didn't get here. I didn't get to be able to speak in front of y'all today. I didn't get to, talk about the things that I love to do about peace and about nonviolence without having to see some shit, without having to go through some shit, without having to fuck up and be checked, right? And be told, no, you're tweaking. That's not correct. So the work we do, right? Peace Book is the opposite of the game book. It provides this adaptable and imaginative directory. So I want to think like imaginative in the most literal and figurative sense of the word, to be extra, right? Imaginative, like, can we imagine free luxury housing for everybody in Chicago? Can we imagine sovereignty, with CPAC and governing our own communities? Can we imagine that? It has to start with imagining that the people who are doing these killings, who are the 16 years old, 17 years old, even 30 years old, right, are not mentally in the place, or not physically, physiologically in the place to, be in these conversations with us as if they were on the same wavelength, because they're quite literally not, right? They're quite literally expropriated, plundered on purpose, redlined, right, by this city, by Lori Lightfoot. So it's not a thing of, we want Lori Lightfoot to give us the money so that we can have her money. It's, we want her to give us the money so that she can see for herself what happens when you divest 2% of the CPD budget directly back into the community, right? So this is continued. I want to go to this. We'll talk about the website and the app. So adaptable, right? Imaginative. I want a transformative platform, right, where basically folks can go find peace facilitators, peace commissioners, right? Peaceful spaces, right? Peace spots, right? Peace hubs that we're trying to create, and basically making and manufacturing, peaceful places, right? So for instance, right, scenario, I'm 17, I live on Laramie and North Avenue, right? And I need to take the bus, but I go to school at Michelle Clark, and over there, that's the mafias, and by me is the foes, right? If I know that, and I have that, unique expertise that we're talking about, right? I'm going to go on the Peace Book website, right? The adaptable, transformative app, right? And I'm going to literally find somebody who lives at these intersections, who knows this area, who is a member of these street organizations, who is, reformed in that aspect of practicing peace, and who wants to come help me. And then that creates the feedback loop of helping each other and practicing peace, so that we don't have to tell you to be peaceful. It's just the norm. So just looking at our multi-tiered system, we have the Peace Commission. So that's theoretically like the liaisons for the Peace Book. So me, Jai, Miracle, Kofi, who was also our mentor, right? Adult allies, looking at peace commissioners. And then, within a month, right? Thousands and thousands of people. But basically people who we feel are already at least somewhere in their knowledge and basis of practicing peace and practicing abolition, that they are able to commission, right, and facilitate discussions with peace facilitators, in their respective wards. So that basically looks like a top-down system of, I tell you, this is what I need to see happen on these blocks. I need to see you walking so-and-so to school. I need to see you, walking her to, right? And then I need to also, be able to, in myself, right? What am I doing on a daily basis that's harmful? Am I checking myself? Am I holding myself accountable, right? Peace commissioners will be able to do that, right? So peace commissioners are trained. We're going to train people to be peace commissioners, and literally their job to get paid for, right? As a job, imaginative, right? So as a, vocation, as a career, is to literally talk to people and, pitch this idea of, hey, there's love out here. There's radical love out here. And the peace commissions are going to focus top down at the areas that are most concentrated and most surveilled in that sense, to be propagated as the most violent, the most harmful, right? So Austin, Bronzeville, North Lawndale, South Shore, Washington Park, West Englewood, Woodlawn, right? Looking at the neighborhoods that are literally in politicians' mouths every other day, right? Dwayne Truss is the, a ward in Austin, and he literally is saying we need more police on the streets, right? So it's a lot of miscommunication between us and the political representatives that have been picked for us, right? Not that we picked. So this is basically, commissioners are people who can be that bridge, people who can be that, I'm not a politician, but I know their verse well enough to beat them at their own game and get this money. Next, we have the peace facilitators. So peace commissioners will train peace facilitators in respective wards, right? Peacekeepers, right? So looking at also the way that language is embedded, right? Policing. Police inherently means, right, you are controlling, you are operating over my autonomy, over my agency as a human being to exist on this earth freely with you, right? So policing is taking away that right to exist, that right to breathe, that right to blink without feeling like I'm being watched. Peacekeepers are literally the opposite. They're watching you and supporting you, right? So peacekeepers, theoretically, like the safe passage, people who are already out, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We have people who can do this. Safe passage people, right? Walk you to and from school. Hey, how you doing? Is your day okay? Did you have enough to eat today, right? Did you drink some water, right? If the answer is no, boom, peacekeeper app. Can we go on the app and get this person some resources right now? Do you need mental health today? Do you feel like you're in crisis? Do you feel like you might harm yourself? Have you seen somebody get harmed today, right? Asking these questions and being imaginative and even our own basis of understanding how our community is plagued by violence is really helping, us train the peacekeepers to go in their wards, go on these blocks and walk people and talk to people and laugh with people and love people, right? So for instance, the Boxville program that we do every day on 51st and Prairie, we operate with a group of boys who theoretically could be in the gang book, could be labeled criminals, could be labeled thugs, right? By Lori Lightfoot. And obviously they're not that, right? Every day I see them, they're walking to and from different blocks, right? They're walking with grocery boxes up to their necks. They're doing like physical, emotional labor, right? They're taking workshops. Like this is all part of, the cumulative, restorative path that we have for the peace book. So peacekeeping, right? Collect and analyze data and coordination, right? When we are out here on these blocks, are there shootings, right? Do we see this many people out? Do we see people as hostile, right? Keeping that qualitative and quantitative data so that it cannot be equivocated and misconstrued by the media who's reporting it and then saying that there are 75 shootings, but they can only find 2 of the people who did the shootings, right? So we're keeping track of all of that for ourselves and then distributing funds to pay the peacekeepers, commissioner members, and factions who have agreed to negotiate. So I'm not going to say too much because we still want to get this money through, but of all of the grants that we're trying to get, we're trying to make sure that the deal is irresistible, right? We understand that street organizations in Chicago are able, right, have means to make multi-million-dollar corporations and, enterprises out of their block, right? How can we literally use that same logic to make $1 million enterprises of peace? How can we make $1 million enterprises of sustainability and love, right? So paying people for their time. This is not easy work. It's not easy to go out and talk to people every day. It's terrifying, especially if you're a Black or brown, young person who literally is under attack from every angle in the city, right? So the link, wraparound services and resource for peace, like I said, if you are in crisis, if I see you across the street and you're walking with your head down, I'm stopping you, right, as a peacekeeper. Highlighting positive community stories and development. So we also want to showcase and uplift, right, the fact that there are many success stories that people said would never happen. People say, well, recidivism is such the case because it just is, and it's just not, right? When you take people out of that confined environment, when you take people in an environment where they feel loved and safe, even though there might be relapse, even though there might be regression, there's going to be ultimate progression, right? So highlighting the stories of people who are in the community, right? People who are in our organization right now, who have literally lived the lives, and could have walked on those brinks of, fatality that we're talking about, but it literally came back to the community because of this incentive, because they knew something was greater. Interrupting violence, meeting conflict, right? So that's our job. We're literally conflict resolution skilled. We're training people to do that. Training people how can you literally use your words to disarm somebody, right? Identifying and working with likely transmitters of violent behavior. So looking at, right, if I know that heroin is sold on this block at that corner, and every morning at 6:30 a.m. there are 50 people standing outside that corner, maybe we should be, checking in with folks outside of that corner and seeing how their mental health is doing and seeing how their physiological needs are doing, right? So using the street senses that we already have, creating and overseeing peace treaties. This is obviously like our reach, right? Peace treaties. People have songs like, man, ain't no peace treaty, man, ain't no, so like many people are like, no, there's no peace treaty. This is not going to stop. And I'm a firm believer that it is, and I'm a firm believer that they have not seen what the world looks like with it stopping. So creating and overseeing peace treaties with peace commissioners, facilitators, peacekeepers, and any other, subcategory that might drop under that when we inevitably get all of the people power that we need. Providing real-time updates on where peace building is occurring. So we're also, like I said, we're using the Black queer feminist lens. I honestly don't know why I'm speaking to y'all today. I think it should be, Black women, but hey, but basically like using this lens to, right, we have a workshop on this day to talk about toxic masculinity. We need you there, right? We got $50 for you and we got bus pass, right? That should be enough to get folks out of bed. That should be enough to get folks, because you're not going to necessarily make $50 or enjoy your $50, right, being made at McDonald's or, any other thing that literally expropriates your time and your labor for money. And finally, creating art, murals, and memorials for Chicagoans lost to gun violence. And then I also want to just asterisk that and just say, creating art, murals, and memorials for Chicagoans. I think that the idea of luxury, the idea of, rights and amenities and what we deem as necessities are very, very, very murky right now because of the pandemic and because of the pillage that we've gone through for 400 years. But a lot of people can't imagine, right, living in a mansion and thinking that they deserve it. And forget a mansion, but a lot of people can't imagine living in their own space and feeling like they deserve it, feeling like they're adequate enough without having to go serve a capitalist system, right? So GKMC, we're attacking all of that. Another thing I want to show y'all, this is the Chicago police budget per year, right? And this is updated. This is updating every single day because Lori's finding new ways to spend money on police. That's 4.8 million tax dollars spent each day. Like Jazmine said before, we are the ones paying for the police and they're killing us. This cannot coexist, right? The dissonance that is involved in that is the prime example of why our consciousness is being, so played with and so distorted by politicians to make it seem as though they're on our side. They're not. So we're looking at, if this is $5 million a day, 6 days, that's $35 million. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for a week of the year's salary of Chicago's budget. I need everybody to understand that. We're asking for a week of Chicago Police's annual budget. We're not asking for you to do everything. We're not asking for you to come in and be kumbaya, and no, we're not asking for, right? We're asking for the abolition. We're asking for the reparation. 2% of CBD's budget. And then finally, I just want to go over that this is working in other cities, right? Our sister cities, excuse me, hold on, I might have just passed the slide. Here we go. Our sister cities, right? San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, NYC, all of these cities, right? And all of these communities that have, probably have some form of CPAC, probably have some form of, police accountability, are literally divesting from their police departments, diverting $150 million from LAPD to health, right? Education, employment. Let's check back in with them in 3 months, right? Let's check back with them in 2 weeks. NYC cut $1 billion off $6 billion NYPD, right? This is chump change, but to us, this is quite literally where we begin our journey. So yeah, the peace book, I'm just so excited to be able to, be on the initiative, and be, in the spaces with folks, but we really need this funding, just if not for to do the project and not to actually get off the ground, for the symbology and for the, the reality of us needing funds and us needing support, just so we can do everything on our own. We can sustain it all. But I thank you so much, everybody, for listening to me, hearing us out today. Thank you to all of the women of color and people and non-binary people and queer people who are on this live, if there are any. Shout out to y'all. We do this work every day and don't even try. So love y'all. And take care, everybody. Get up with y'all soon. I'm very excited to hear back from y'all. I have to run right now, but this was a great meeting. I'm so glad.
Thank you, Jalen, for coming. Thank you for presenting. We would love to continue this conversation. I hate that you have to go. I think that perhaps some folks from Good Kids Mad City might stay. And so if you do have questions for Good Kids Mad City from Jalen for this presentation.
I mean, okay, hold on. Let me stop playing. I'm about to get in the Uber, so I can stay. I'm about to get in the Uber. If y'all are okay with me, switching in and out the car, I'll stay. That's fine. I have my headphones.
Thank you.
Because I really want to make sure that folks can answer questions and stuff like that. I don't want to be the in and out.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Jalen? I know y'all might have a question for Jalen.
There was just one question that Kelly wrote in the chat, Lenny, that said, do you have any links about the Peace Book to share publicly?
Yes, I do. And I'm going to get you, actually, I'll send the link in the group chat tonight. I want to make sure with my mentor that both of the links that I think are acceptable are, but there's one link that is absolutely acceptable to share. It's it's not even dry. It's a pretty thorough overview of kind of the blurb of what we're doing. And then obviously the slides will be shared. I think we're meeting with, well, we're supposed to meet with Lori, but hey, she was supposed to meet today. So, but we're in meetings with folks, city council, aldermanic, alder people. So we're trying to get those slides out. But if you want the slides, I can, everybody here can see the slides. You feel me? I can't say that we as GKMC can get the slides out, but everybody here, if you have any questions or anything, can see the slides, full transparency.
Awesome, Jalen. That makes sense. So we're comfortable to share this link later on with others, and what you presented was perfect. And then Annie says, how do you see civic education and engagement working within this environment? And you're on mute.
Excuse me, Annie. That is a terrific question. Thank you so much. Yeah. So basically, it's quite literally everything is everything. Civic education is CPAC, is Peace Book, is community accountability. Basically in the idea of one, I think this is a longer conversation, but looking at how our school system functions, right? CPS is only one letter off from CPD for a reason, right? They're very corrupt in that aspect of, hoarding and accumulating money and then not distributing and reallocating it to the actual needs of sustainability and renewability for their people. So civic education for us looks like we have curriculum that we've designed and also adapted to from other organizations' curriculum. So Asada's Daughters, right? Looking at Black Abolitionist Network, Black Youth Project, Black Lives Matter Chicago. not only like a restorative justice pedagogy, but also just a pedagogy and framework of how people should be educated in humanity. We should not be learning algebra and biology and all of this other shit in 8th grade without learning about how in 1958 Black people couldn't live in half of the areas in Chicago, right? That can't happen, because by the time we get to high school, by the time we get to college, right? I'm in college classes right now. Folks don't know what a racial covenant is, right? They don't know what this is. And these are the next people, the next doctors, right? So looking at it, your question absolutely holds the most validity. Education, to me, is the most important thing that we can use to liberate ourselves. Consciousness, right? Getting ourselves aware of the harm and the trauma that we possess and also that we inflict, right? So civic education, an example of how we did that right now, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we do Boxville, and from 3 to 5, we pass out the food boxes, but then after that we do a mandatory workshop for our members. And that's very small scale, that's very microcosmic, but looking at how, if we did that for, people in alternative schools and Cook County, right, juvenile detention centers, and even Chicago public schools, right? The idea of civic education, right? Students being able to be like, wait, why do I see police in my school? Why are there policemen walking around with guns in my school? Why are there metal detectors, pressing me when I come to school? And then that's what formulates people to get to even the idea of joining a Good Kids Mad City, right? So yeah, that's what I say where that one is.
Thank you. And then Lindsay says, how can people like us work to make Peacebook a reality? She says, talk to older people, contact Lightfoot's office, get to a training, educate others. And Annie says, yes, yes, yes to everything that you said.
Annie, love, period. I would say too, I'd say those options are honestly probably not your job. That's too much work, I would say, for folks to be doing if you're not on the Peacebook Commission. We're doing all of that right now. And honestly, like, doing that, it's not counterproductive. Of course, call the mayor, blow their shit up, period. Like, fuck their day up. Like, we don't give no fuck. But one thing that we're actually trying to survey right now is, what is the people power behind the Peacebook? Can that actually overthrow the ideology that we need funding to do it, right? So social media, I need folks to, we have a post that we're putting out today, and folks from GKMC have put out, but we have a petition now, right? Do you want to see the Peacebook ordinance passed, right? We have a petition. We have a QR locator, right, that you can post. We have Good Kids Mad City events that you can post. Telling your family, telling people about the Peacebook, literally being like, in your Uber, right? Talking about, hey, this is what I do, right? This is just what I do. So I can only speak from what I do, but I'm telling you, from the 100 people that turned their head, that one person followed me back to GKMC and said, yeah, let's do it. And that's all it takes. So like, yeah, mobilize, and keep on calling their ass, blow their phone up, talk to the older people, all of that.
Okay, and then is there a hashtag? And is there a handle that we should follow on Twitter?
Yes, I'll put them in the thing, but the hashtags are, the handle that I want everybody to follow is GKMC18 on Instagram. And then from there, the drop down bar where you can follow other people, follow other Black orgs, follow other Black abolitionist orgs, follow other orgs ran by Black queer women, by Black trans people. That they are the experts quite literally in every arena that we're tackling in this fight. So that, and then the hashtag, we're doing Peacebook Ordinance, so hashtag Peacebook Ordinance. We really want to create as much traffic as we can. So Peacebook 2020, Peacebook, hashtag Peacebook Challenge. So we have a challenge now that we're doing with our members, right? So it's like the Ice Bucket Challenge, right? So it's a peace pledge that we have. I can drop it in the group chat as well. But it's a peace pledge. I, Jalen Kobayashi, pledge to take the Good Kids Mad City peace pledge. And then I explain how I will, restore harm that I've committed. I will not, kill people who look like me, basically like your ins and outs, but and sharing that, right, as maybe not likable and not shareable as that seems, I think is just an extremely like innovative way to get folks to even just to be conscious and be conscientious of the fact that there is a peace book gonna happen, because the more the merrier. And also, like, we're not trying to make sure that anybody can't get on the peace book. We want everybody on the peace book. So it's not like you miss your beat now, it can't happen. Like, tell people, like, if you're not free these months, but you're free next month to work on some canvassing or something, like, hit us up, or whatever that looks like. But we have space and capacity for everyone to do something.
Okay, the other questions relate to the workers, the paid workers. Will you have both youth and adult paid workers is what
Yes.
Natalie says. And also, thank you. And
Mm.
then do you need people to be piece workers? Is that the term firstly? And also, if so, what qualifies them, experience, identity, et cetera? And I think probably we could go into a lot into that, but if you have time,
No, yeah,
I
I'll
know
keep it.
you were
Yeah, I
gonna,
got you.
yeah, go ahead.
No problem. I got you. No, it's all good. So paid adult and teenage workers, yes. So this is like, we're trying to reimagine also like the idea of a job and a vocation. So like I work at GKMC, and you know, although I'm not a millionaire, but I get rides to and from places. I get meals, right? So looking at how we can resource folks, to reimagine how we attract our own capital in our being. So that all of that fluff is to say, you can be 45, you can be 90, you can be 18, you can be 10. If you have some interest, if you have some commitment, if you have some desire to, in any capacity, right? It doesn't look like just working as a peace commissioner. It can look like literally you're a social media traffic person. All you do is post. All you do is this. You can get paid for that, right? You can get paid for that, and that's what we're trying to show folks. You can get paid for doing the right thing. You don't have to get paid to go, you know, one, go shoot a gun, go sell some drugs, but two, you don't need to get paid to go subvert your body and subjugate yourself to work that people who are owning and people who are, you know, controlling over that wouldn't even work a job like that, right? So that's for the workers. We're trying to make sure that, yeah, folks, this work doesn't stop when you're 60. Like there are 60-year-old men who are still out here being violent in their own rights, right? So we got to stop it at any age and make sure we're incentivizing folks. And then the second question was to peace workers. Do we need peace workers? If so, what qualifies their expertise? And then I forgot the last part of your question, but so peace workers, I think you could use as a shorthand. I think we have like language that we're using to identify that is specific. So peace workers as a Venn diagram, like the all encompassing, yes, I would say we should call them peace workers. Like that's what our job is. I'm a peace worker. And then what that means is, right, your title, and we don't want to do titles either, but it's just for the simple fact of shorthand, which also we're trying to reimagine, but shorthanding so that, okay, you did this many trainings, okay, you're not ready to be a commissioner yet, but you can still facilitate and get paid for that. Next week, maybe if you complete these trainings and we see that you demonstrate some application of that knowledge, then, you know, you'll be ready to be a commissioner. But that looks like intensive training. This is not like, oh, you want to get paid and you don't want to shoot people? Awesome, great, you're on the board. Like, no, like this is very like in-depth, attuned and atoned work that we have to do. And we always have to be educated on ourselves too. I'm in workshops every other day learning shit that I've literally thought I knew my entire life and did not know. So being training myself and then training, you know, the folks around me, right? So if you're a peace facilitator, right? If you're a peace facilitator in your ward, that could look like you're the head of your ward or block, right? So that looks like wherever you are at in that time, your peace workers, right, who are below you or, you know, not necessarily what, at the same intensive training that you have been at, would be able to hit you up for resources, for allyship, for guidance in that respect. But yeah, very intensive training. I don't think that there's a quantitative amount of hours. I think it's very much so practice, and realities like what really happened. So for instance, if I see you at every workshop on misogyny and toxic masculinity and you're taking notes and that's all great, but then I hear you using the B word and I hear you calling girls out their name every other day, you're not ready to be a peace commissioner, right? This is very much so Black Panther, like we adapted that like very high structure of this is not a joke. This is not like funny. It's love, it's peace, but this is serious work. There are people dying. We don't have time for people to come in who are not, you know, in the right headspace to even give themselves. Because problems are going to occur. Harm is going to occur. Violence is going to occur. But it's how can we repair it? If you're not willing to even take the steps to repair it, there's no reason for you to be in the space at the moment. So yeah, that type of training applies to every logic, even for peace commissioners. Let's say I'm a peace commissioner and, you know, the other day, right, I just commissioned 15 wards, you know, to start a new incentive program for football players or something, right? Or whatever that looks like. And then the next day, I'm out here on social media talking about BDK, GDK. Like you can't contradict, right, the work that you're doing. So it's very much so like, do we see you doing the work? Do we see you actually doing the work? Like, do you apply it? Do you use it? Do you, right, practice it? And then how well can you do it? So if I know that my buddy Jalen is not as equipped with the knowledge, even as a peace commissioner, to be in the same conversation with the other liaisons, I might have him do another job that day and double down on duty so that he's ready for the next time that it comes around. So just making sure that everybody knows this is an ever-turning wheel, and that like what qualifies you is ongoing. You can always qualify yourself by showing up and showing out and doing the work. And then what's the next question? I just seen it.
The question is, who leads the workshops?
Oh, who leads the workshop? So we have different folks lead the workshops from different organizations, from people who we just know, who we are blessed enough to know. So for instance, we had Jason Ware lead a workshop. He's a teacher at also Community Charter on the West Side, and he came in and did a talk with our boys about toxic masculinity, right? So he obviously had to have had some knowledge and some verse in that. And even still throughout the workshop, there was stuff I was like, but like, for the most part, the workshop is getting people to the conversation point, getting people to that point, but also allowing folks to be experts in their own right. And then like always opening dialogue. So even if I'm an expert on Mazda cars and I gave you an incorrect fact and you tell me that was incorrect, I'm not going to be like, no, you're wrong, I'm the expert. I'm going to be like, wow, thank you so much for adding that. I'm more knowledgeable now that you told me that, right? That's how our GKMC workshops work. So they're led by, we've had professors come in, we've had members from other organizations. So Damon Williams, if y'all know Let Us Breathe, he works a lot through toxic masculinity, decolonizing, patriarchy and those systems. We have a lot of Black queer women and Black queer femmes and Black trans people are probably our top priority to come in and be uplifted in the space, not necessarily teach, because they're obviously experts in their field and should not have to, unless being compensated very thoroughly, should not have to tell people, hey, this is my experience, don't hurt me because it hurts. Like, you know what I mean? We have to have folks who are have some common ground with the folks that we're trying to educate, so that it's not, harmful to both people, because even still it would be harmful to those boys, right? If a Black trans person came in and automatically came in and that was all they knew and they had that association, now they can't even get past the idea of I can't even deconstruct what a Black trans person is, let alone if I see one, I'm going to misbehave or I'm going to act out or I'm going to say something that's harmful, right? So looking at that, we just try to make sure that we have the best experts that we can in each field subjectively, so that we're educating folks and also like encouraging hard and like conflicting conversations, right? We want folks to open up and tell the truth. What did you think was right that is wrong? Can we help you? Yeah. If that answers it. I feel like I went on a tangent, but
no. If you want to round it out, and then you absolutely. Thank you so much, Jalen. I feel really great about all the information that you shared with us today, especially when folks come and say, I don't understand this hashtag, why is it on your poster board? Why are you sharing it on social media, which is the hashtag, which is defund police? What does that mean? And people say, what exactly do you mean? I feel pretty confident after your presentation that we could say, look at the peace book and look at the work that's behind the peace book. I mean, is there anything that you want to say to round out this conversation? I thank you so much for being here too.
No, thank you too. Yes, I want to say the peace book is CPAC, is community accountability, is abolish ICE, is defund CPD. Peace book is literally just our niche, right, manifestation of how we want to see peace. But the peace book is pedagogy that the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Red Suns, the Brown Berets, all of these organizations, Marsha P. Johnson, like all of the things that came before us have taught us and laid the manuals for. We are literally just asking for the funding at this point. So imagining if you can't contribute to the peace book because of whatever the case is, I understand, like there's no hard feelings. Contribute to some form of peace in your everyday. What can you do to check on yourself, to be like, am I being peaceful to myself? Have I been hard on myself today, right? It starts with us. It starts with me. Have I eaten? Have I drunk water? And then maybe I'll see why I was quick to go rob somebody, or I was quick to go shoot somebody, because I haven't even been loving on myself. How could I love on somebody else? So love all of y'all. I wish all of you protection and abundance, and I wish all of you the courage and the strength to do this work. It's going to be nitty gritty, and I'm excited to get on board with y'all. This shit is crazy. Let's get it. Thank you, Lenny, for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Jalen. We're sending you a lot of love, and thank you for everything that you're doing. Awesome. So I am so grateful to introduce Deborah Harris on the call right now. Deborah, talk about, putting actual lives on the line, what you're doing every day in the neighborhood, and in talking about civic engagement, you are doing the work. We're so happy to have you on this call again. This is not the first time we've had you on the Thursday live stream. Last time you were here, we were talking with Angela Lang from Block in Milwaukee. and talking about how it absolutely, you know, don't come here. She said to us, don't come here and ask for something when I've never seen you before. You know, everything starts in your communities, and that's what Black Leaders Organizing for Communities is all about. And I'm saying, Deborah Harris, you are doing that same work here in Chicago. So thank you. Last time I saw you, actually, you were talking at the rally, the vigil for Ruth Bader Ginsburg at Federal Plaza. So I'm so grateful that you're here today, Deborah.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna keep it short, as short as I can, because it's late. No, but hearing from Jazmine, hearing from Jalen, I know for me is just purely educational, you know, because, you know, these are things that like I see, but I don't have like all the things and all the depth in it. And so, you know, the more you know, you know, the more you're able to talk about it. And Jalen made a comment earlier, and I can't remember his comment, but I wrote something down, and it was regarding like civic education and civic engagement, because somebody asked a question. I was like, well, civic education and civic engagement is like the cornerstone of organizing. Like, you can't just pull people together for a thing that they don't understand, something that hasn't landed in their soul, in their heart, in their mind. They don't know the correct language to use about it. Like, that comes with education. Like, that's how you build sustainable cultural change, transformational actional change. You know, it's with the civic education and engagement. And so that is what like Action Out Institute does. And like with me being here, want to be more intentional about, for sure. So even coming into like this space tonight, like tonight's town hall is about like defund the police, not just a hashtag. And you said something earlier, Lenny, way earlier, and it was about like politicians and elected officials or whomever, like not being prepared for these conversations. And so when we talk about like defunding the police, it's like there's levels to it, and there's each person has a responsibility to those levels. So like when we talk about this, it's like defunding is about transparency of money being transformational, money reflecting back what disenfranchised communities need and commitment to that. You know, defunding the police is about educating communities, not just about like what it will do, but like actually giving disenfranchised communities like the space to envision alternatives. Like the Peace Book and CPAC, like it's a whole new universe. It's a whole new universe. And so like defunding the police is also about educating people and encouraging them and empowering them to imagine something different. That imagine something that came from your soul, from your mouth, from your people. And a lot of people are scared of that. They really are, especially disenfranchised communities that have been like under a whip for so long, you know, living within the throes of systemic racism, even those outside of like Black and, you know, people of color communities. You know, we've never been given space to think of something different. We've always been told this is what it is. And so what I see in this movement, not just what's happening now, but what's happening now is like a culmination of us trying to get to this space, to be brave about saying a thing out loud, to be brave about teaching a thing, to be brave about actually implementing the thing and like manifesting it in real time. And that's going to take a lot of people like internalizing what this means to wake up to a community that has defunded from an oppressive system, that has defunded from an oppressive mindset, that has taught themselves how to heal and be brave in their own communities and how they organize and regulate and keep each other safe. But also, like, we can't do that without leaders that we have chosen or voted for to represent our best interests. We can't do this without trust and transparency. And we can't do this without them being prepared. And we can't do this without them having a firm and solid commitment to helping change like our ways of life. And so I'm gonna just keep it all the way 100. Like, not having Mayor Lightfoot here is a strike. And not just one strike, it's a couple strikes. Because we can't say we're for the people and for making amends or for having solutions when we're not listening to, engage with, and building solutions with those directly impacted. And so defunding the police is also about accountability to your people, accountability to their future, accountability to their safety, and not just physical safety, but their mental safety, their emotional safety, the safety of the next generation. And the transparency and the willingness to do that is so important in this time. And so as an organization that is committed to deep organizing, relational organizing, transformational organizing, that isn't extractive, that isn't transactional, but that actually like wants to create more space for people to have voice and to have administrations and city councils and mayors and all the hoopla like blocking not only like my right as a citizen here in this country, but my human right to want more and to go after more for myself. So it's like when I listen to Jalen, I listen to Jazmine. For me, it's like one way or another, this is going to happen with or without you. But if we're going to actually say we want to build a world and a city and a state that works for all people, then defund the police can't just be something that we say. It has to be something we do, something we feel, something we really understand with our guts, and something that we are brave about every single day. Every single day. And that's a tough fight. Like Jalen says, it's a tough fight. But we have to be committed to doing it. And so like I want to thank the young folks that's on the ground, like doing it and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and not backing down from this. Because one, you're giving me more fire to go back to the communities, and you're also giving me the educational tools to talk to people that ain't got internet, because the resources, the poverty is overwhelming. They don't have time to check in like this or capacity or access. But I can take this information back to community, whether it's on paper, holding smaller community listening sessions, and talk to people about this, to think bravely about what defunding the police means, what that looks like, what that feels like, and like build up that power and that healing and that collective vision. So like everything that was shared here tonight is mind-blowing, but it is beautiful, and it's the beauty that we need at this moment. And we got to be brave with that beauty. So I commend both of you young folks for just being beautiful, like in this work, and just like not placing anything over you and trying to water it down and trying to hide and trying to make it look like something else. And it's your God-given right to demand a beautiful life for yourself. And the way you're organizing this, like I just want to continue to do that. And actually now within our capacity, wherever we are, we will continue to educate ourselves on what this is and share this with people and help you all hold space wherever we can with our folks. So thank you, Indivisible, and thank you, Jazmine and Jalen. I know you've logged off, but for sharing space with one of the old organizers here to talk about, you know, defunding the police becoming a way of life. I really do appreciate it.
Annie is saying, old head. She is laughing at you, girl. And
I'm almost 40.
Young. Everyone is saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, Deborah. Thank you for showing up yourself. You know, that is really a lot of it, is showing up and making yourself known and being present And when you show up, you know, understanding the space that you're walking into and being open to learning and to sharing and to lifting up those that are actually doing the work, that is building up community. Maybe it doesn't seem like a lot to folks, but it does. Acknowledging those who are actually doing the work around you means a lot. And sometimes we think that people understand, you know, what parts of us are doing what, but until you actually say, stop that person and say thank you, they can't read your mind. So I appreciate that. And also, I think about Jalen, you know, what is it in that your life that you are not at peace about right now? Is it that you're not hydrated? That's so powerful. You know, are you taking care of yourself? So I want to just point that out too. Thank you everybody for taking care of yourself so that you could take care of others. We got a question from Annie. Deborah, will the police ever reform if police unions exist?
And I said, absolutely not. And that's not being like cynical. That's not being, I was like, the unions were built for a specific task and they've been running like a well-oiled machine, you know? So trying to reform like an ideology and a way of life that's so like rooted is like, how do you pull up a tree from the Sherwood forest? Who does that? How does that happen? Has anybody done that? Like, that thing been growing forever and ever. That thing ain't coming up no time soon. I don't care how many bulldozers it's gonna take, because those roots are intertwined. They done made cousins. They all over the place. So it's like, you know, and I think that's to be honest, so many people are scared to step away from reform because it's been like the party line. Let's reform, let's reform, let's reform, let's reform. They don't want to reform. That's not within white supremacy's best interests and interests of their power to reform their way of life. I'm sorry. Like, a bear is not going to stop being a bear. You know what I'm saying? Just because, I don't know, you gave it some type of food, you're still food too. Like, what are we talking about here? I'm just saying. And that's what I mean by like this generation that is here is no longer masking the words and what actually needs to happen. They're brave enough to put reform in the corner where it belongs on a very long time out and think of something new and bold and actually like push it forward. And so like that's just where we are with it.
Annie also says a certain type of individual is hired to be a cop when that respects authoritarianism and won't question orders, and that's by design. And maybe this question might be for Jazmine. How can CPAC address the hiring of a cop, and if we need them at all? And I'd invite Jazmine to come on if you'd like to answer that, or maybe Deborah, you'd like to answer.
I mean, if the expert is available, then I'm gonna let her handle that.
Hey y'all, sorry, I had to step away for a second to go to the restroom. What was the question?
The question is, how can CPAC address the hiring of cops, if in fact we need them at all?
Well, with CPAC, the council would have the authority to hire and fire cops. And another feature of CPAC as well is that the folks who are elected to serve on the CPAC, you can't be a police officer, you can't be married to a cop, you can't have a cop in your family, so like brothers and sisters level family. Yeah, so CPAC is basically designed to make sure that we can hold the cops accountable, and definitely being in control of the hiring process is one of the many features of CPAC.
Thanks, Jazmine. Julia mentions that people are, by nature, are terrified of real transformation because, like forest fire, transformation requires death. The only people not scared are those already experiencing dire consequences and circumstances. I mean, yes, it's exactly it. I mean, when I think of folks who actually put their lives and bodies on the line, I think about you, Deborah, who, you traveled to do that. I mean, here's the thing. It is a scary time right now. When is a better time to disrupt the status quo? But now, I don't know another time in my life that we're going to have so many things intersecting at this point. If you're not motivated to do something now, I don't know when. So that's why I'm really encouraged when I hear actual ordinances that are being proposed and people going deep into that. And also, I'm encouraged by having Deborah on this call, who can actually give us a bird's eye view of why we're doing this in the first place. And it always points back to, this idea of engagement civically and in our community. So I go on, but Deborah.
I don't no, like that quote that's in the chat, like, it's very true. So for Black folks and people of color, like, the death defiers have always been there. And like I said, like, there's always been like iterations of generations of freedom fighters like standing up and being like, to hell with this, we're gonna fight for our right to breathe, our right to dream, our right to smile. And in this generation, it's graduated to such a degree that it lights me up. And so what I would say, and this, Lenny, like, at this point, we can't handhold those that are scared, because we've had to live with fear for so long. And still, as I sit here, and so it's like, either you in it or you not. Either you're gonna take up space at this point, this juncture, or you're not. Because yes, it is dire, and yes, it is scary. But our lives have been on the line since inception. And we're just at the point now where there's more of us collectively just willing to risk it all. Willing to say the thing, do the thing, speak boldly and bravely to our people, reach out to more of us, because it's gonna take a lot of us to hold this together. Like, even like when it's getting down to the last flank of us still holding the line, it's gonna take all of us to do this. It really is. And we can't be cowards because it's scary. We can't. And so that's why I'm so encouraged by the young folks today that are just bold and brave about what it is and what we need. Because why the hell not? You tried to take everything else away from me, or you've taken everything else away from me. I have nothing to lose but my dignity. And damn it, I'm not gonna lose that too. So I'm going all out. And I just encourage everybody to like find their lane and fight like hell for not just yourself, but for somebody that really ain't got a shot in hell and ain't had one since they got here. Like, that's the type of tool we all need to pick up, especially those that have not been affected the way that Black folks and people of color have. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you so much for that, Deborah. I want to point that Annie says that I finally understand why freedom fighters do what they did. Julia says, I don't know what to do about that. Hand-holding these moderates is exhausting. Well, yes, that's why you start with your friends and family, right? I know that you have friends and family. If we can organize our friends and family, we're doing okay. We start there. But I am encouraged. I know a lot of us indivisibles are really focused at the federal level, but here's the thing: when it comes down to it, whatever happens at the White House, who represents you locally, they have your lives in their hands, really. The local representatives affect your daily lives much more, yes, than what's going on in the White House. Yes, Deborah.
But also with that, like, I think for me, as someone who's worked crossways with both, we must understand the intersectionality of both. We cannot be so hyper locally focused that we forget how what happens there trickles down to our everyday. And it's as simple as CPAC, the defund movements that are happening. Okay, you have a current executive officer in the White House that has many, or if not all, of FOP unions in his back pocket. He puts a call out, it's a wrap. I need you to endorse this senator, this congressional person, this judge, block that ordinance, block this, block that, open the gates for my troops to come in. Like, what he says is gold. And that trickles down to people he has reached to at your local level. That you're trying to affect change and move around and strategize and da-da-da. It all plays a role. So it's like at some point you also have to strategize on how to cut the head off the snake. We have campaigns going on like saving our schools and things of that nature. Illinois gets most of its funding federally for pretty much everything we do. We're not California, we're not New York. Our GDP is not big enough to sustain us. And when you have an administrator and a president that's saying, I'm cutting off funding to states that have democratic powers or states that are doing anti-racism training and diversity inclusion training because it's not patriotic, that affects what you're fighting for on the local level. We must know what to do all across the hairs. We must know how everything trickles down and flows back up. It affects everything. Everything. And we have to be very smart and watchful of how it all plays into each other. So yeah, your local elections, your local politics affects your everyday life. But when you got somebody in power at the federal level that don't care about that, that will exercise whatever power they have to infiltrate that and make it harder for you to even have a plan, to have equity and racial justice in your neighborhood, it's time for you to build, some other strategies and tactics and look at what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. That is that. And that's why I love the name of my group, Indivisible. I think that it implies that you are not alone, you are working with others, and right now we need everybody under the same tent. We're gonna need everybody on board, just exactly what you're saying, Deborah. I want to throw it to Jazmine just to give some last remarks before we close out for the day.
Sure. Well, again, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I definitely learned a lot. Definitely hearing the two panelists. Deborah, thank you so much for your words. And of course, you know, all the work that you do as well. But yeah, I just want to say, you know, right now, you know, we're in this very critical moment, right? We have a man in the White House who's a fascist, you know, who is definitely the law and order president, you know, who at one point was telling, you know, the police in Chicago, don't be too nice, you know, on people in the community, you know. The new president of one of the FOP chapters here in Chicago, I first saw him in 2017. Oh no, I'm sorry, 2018 actually. The Public Safety Committee of the City Council was having these hearings about CPAC. And of course, this guy shows up in a Trump jersey and he gets on the mic and he says, if any civilian oversight, so that includes GAPA and CPAC, if anything like that is passed, the police in this city will riot. There will be an uprising, you know, with the police. And that was in 2018, you know, and at the time, of course, people were alarmed, but speak for me personally, you know, I was like, okay, but it's just one guy, he's so extreme. But in 2020, look at where we're at right now, right? Where you have, you know, white nationalists who are organizing, you know, look at what's happening in Kenosha, look at what's happening in Portland, you know. I feel like one of the mottos of this uprising, you know, has been we keep us safe. So who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. And that's why I feel like it's even more important for people now to get involved, to join organizations, to talk, to have those hard conversations. And I feel like especially for the white people, you know, who may be tuning into this, I feel like oftentimes, you know, Thanksgiving is coming up, and I feel like every year I see Facebook statuses about, oh my God, my uncle's so racist. How are you having those hard conversations with your uncle? How are you having those hard conversations with the people in your family? This is life and death. This is life and death for a lot of people. The police will not hesitate, especially if you're Black. The police will not hesitate to shoot you, to rape you, to harass you, to threaten you, because they know that they can do it and get away with it. That's why for us in the Alliance, community control of the police is fundamental. The police have a boot on the necks of the Black and Latinx community currently. That's why passing CPAC is urgent. But even going back to what's happening federally, we have to defeat Trump. That is essential. And I'm not going to endorse any candidates. That's not what I'm here to do. But ultimately, we need to defeat Trump, whether it's by voting or being in the streets and organizing. He's got to go. And I'll end by saying this. Lori Lightfoot, our current mayor, you know, I feel like all too often she will tweet about Trump or, you know, act like she's like against him, you know, but there are pictures of her meeting with Trump's daughter, right? Trump's daughter, who is a part of his cabinet. I'm not exactly sure how that works. You know, nepotism is absurd, but you know what I'm saying? And so we have a lot of politicians here who say that they're for the people, but they're not actually for the people. When Lori Lightfoot was the head of the Office of Professional Standards within CPD in the early 2000s, the rate that police officers are being held accountable for excessive force actually dropped. Lori Lightfoot has a history of defending killer cops. So as far as I'm concerned, the differences between Lightfoot and Trump are very minor, especially when we look at the issue of policing. You know what I'm saying? So yes, we need to defeat Trump, but also there's work at all different levels that we have to do. So I say the important thing, pick your fight, find your fight, get in it, and get to work.
Thank you, Jazmine. And I'm going to throw it to Deborah for your last words. No? And she's saying no.
Since she got it.
Okay, so Deborah said that's it. So here's what I'm going to leave you with. I want to thank everybody for joining. I got my ballot in the mail. I'm super excited. That's one. And the second thing is my daughter applied to be a poll worker this year. So Yay for her. I'm really excited. I have so many options with this ballot, right? But I know that what I need to do is to get my vote in right away. So no matter if you decide to early vote, you saw today, I would just point out that the line for early voting today was, you know, down the block. How about you fill out a ballot at home and then you could just drop it in the mailbox and you don't have to stand in that line, right? Right? Or you could put it in the mailbox, you put it in the drop box, but any way you do it, you want to make your plan to vote and you want to encourage people to do the same. So thank you, Jazmine. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, everybody who joined today. We are going to post this up. We're going to put the questions that were in the chat and we're going to share it with our electeds. And I want to thank you for Rose for joining us too, who's usually on this live stream every Thursday for virusfreevotingillinois.org. Check out that website. Thank you so much and have a great night.